Hey everyone, this is Dan Holman with The Wealthy Retailer. And if you're listening to this podcast, it's because you're in and around the world of retail. My guest today is a returning favorite, Margo Kopman with the Project Retail. And we're going to talk a lot about, where you need to be in independent retail today. Margo, welcome back.
Thanks so much, Dan.
Let's do a quick refresh. For the people that haven't had a chance to watch your podcast from a couple of months ago, tell us a little story about who Margo is and where she's come from.
Margo is, I love talking in the third person. I am a retail junkie that at a very young age went for my dreams and opened a retail store and realized all of the things I didn't know about 4 years into it. So fast forward to now, I transitioned out of my retail store, sold it, and became a full-time consultant to basically coach other people like me to, basically live their dreams, but smarter and more profitably.
Smarter and more profitably. So are they really like you, the retailers that you work with?
I mean, it depends on the day, Dan. Depends on the day.
Yeah, and I don't mean that as a slight at all. I mean, are you seeing a similarity between the retailers that you work with today and the retailer that you were, 10 years ago?
110%, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, we think that we're in this, what we call modern retail world, but really there's a lot of things that are constant in retail that aren't changing.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, you just jumped all over that statement. I love that. Let's talk. Okay, let's get down to business here. Let's talk about coming off of, this is, midway through Q1 in 2020. We're coming off of what I've called, a bit of a strange holiday period. I think I've said to other retailers, I said to Scott Smith from Empowered Retail, on our last podcast, I believe this is going to go down in history as the biggest discount, holiday period we've ever seen. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. I think it'll be interesting to actually see how it compares to when the bottom fell out in 2008, because what really dictated that discount, obviously the economy, but, the big boxes really killed the independents because they were so freaked out.
Right.
And so here we are, however many years later, and we had this very bizarre holiday season, which really, appears, and obviously, we can't always go off of that, but it appears to really have happened because of the timing of the holidays. Mm-hmm. And everyone is on sale and has been on sale and has been promoting discounts essentially now for, over 8 weeks, I would say.
Right.
And so, it's interesting to sort of watch it unfold and how all of the retailers right now, our retailers that we work with, the ones that are really in a great place, and then the ones that, still have a little bit of work to do, meaning they still have a nice amount of inventory that's left over that they haven't been able to actually liquidate, interestingly enough.
Mm-hmm. And so, so there's two kinds or two examples that you're seeing today. Those that still have inventory and those that, discounted through holiday and beyond. And how far past holiday have you seen, this promotional world, I'm going to say, live? Are we still seeing that mid-February? Are we still seeing holiday type discounting?
Yes, we are.
Why?
And I think because going back to what we really talked about, one of the things the last time I was on was, the customer experience. Yes. And, it's not always about selling. You have to really, really, really incorporate that customer experience because, that omni-channel customer is the most valuable customer, right? So, and that doesn't mean everyone, by the way, that you need to sell online, but really creating the experience that goes from social to your own website that's, marketing, and then translating into the in-store experience. And so what we're finding is that the stores currently that are left basically have a decent amount of past season's goods. So, November and prior goods still sitting on the floor. What they unfortunately didn't have a grasp on necessarily was that experience that they needed to create in the store to keep the merchandise moving, even at a discount. Which is really interesting. And that can come, in a couple different sort of fashions. Like, some people weren't necessarily aggressive enough with their discounts early on, which, the fear of, my margins. Well, the reality is that selling it in February, right?
Right.
They think by February, it'll be gone, because in December or early January, they didn't want to take a greater markdown. And now they're still sitting on it, and it's really worth, at this point, pennies on the dollar. So the stores that really pushed the markdown strategy and incorporating that into their experience end of year and, in the month of January, really have come out whole, right? And the ones that are still sitting on a larger percentage of previous season's goods, they're scratching their heads and they're saying, oh, my cash flow is going to be even worse than projected.
Right.
Which,
for sure.
We never like to see.
Right. Okay, so let's just touch on cash flow, because it's going to be sensitive for people that are, coming off of holiday and in the past have come out of holiday with a little bit of dough in the bank to feed their spring, summer business. And so, those people that are still sitting on goods and feeling that cash crunch, what should they be doing in their store right now?
So, we basically have very little time left, and everyone needs to strategize essentially on how to create a very short and sweet sale. We're coming up here on President's Day weekend here in the U.S. It's one of those things where it's like, okay, you have 3 days, people are out and about, there's a vacation day in there, schools are closed, all of that kind of stuff.
Right.
Really strategically, do a sidewalk sale, do an off-site sale, do what you have to do, and really discount it. I find that price points are the best, right? At this point, nobody cares if it's 75% off. They don't even know what that means.
Right.
They want to know if it's $10, right?
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, that's really the only way to go. And they have to really say, okay, whatever's left over, I need to reset my floor. I mean, I think that's where, we run into trouble where, okay, we didn't get rid of it fast enough. The whole world was on markdown. And now here we are in the middle, essentially, of a new season, because spring does start, right, February 1st, if not mid-January.
Right.
And, if their store still has a percentage of fall, winter goods, it's really muddying the waters to have the full price sales on the new goods.
Right.
So reset that floor, take it off. I mean, we know that, it's rotting dollar bills in the back room or in a box or, wherever we put it, but we have to really move forward. We can't live in the past, and we also just can't stare at the past.
We can't stare at it. And
so
if I'm reading between the lines, the recovery is about resetting your store with new merchandise, with the new goods that are on the way. Get rid of everything that's, pre-November or December at cents on the dollar without thinking about it. Put that cash in the bank to feed the new season. And how do I...
And don't do it. And don't do it again next year, Dan.
Don't follow the leader next year. Is that what you're saying? Carve your own path.
Yes.
How are we gonna get the customer to respond to us now if we've spent 8-12 weeks screaming sale and discount How do we get her to respond now?
Well, wow, that's a great question. I mean, I think first what we really need to do is, the store owners really need to make sure that they have the right balance of inventory on the floor. I think, the science part at this point and the numbers is actually really important before they move into any sort of marketing. Because if you don't have what they're looking for, you can spend all the money and time that you want on marketing. But, at some point, if they respond to the marketing and regularly, if they continue to come in and they don't have, the stores don't have what they're looking for, they won't return, right? And the true, what, everyone in the world considers spring when the weather turns warm, right?
Right.
So, if they don't first and foremost look at their inventory, their mix, and then strategically start to roll out the marketing and really talk to the specific customers, whether it's the customer that's going on spring break with their kids or, the customer that, travels for work in first quarter, they really need to make sure that they have what they're looking for. I think that the events, creating relationships with your vendors and potentially, having an event or a trunk show and not even necessarily taking on extra inventory or even the expense of like flying the vendor out or anything like that. But, if we know that we've got, a specific vendor who has really great buzz right now, a delivery coming in, let's have a weekend trunk show event just with the current inventory we have on order and coming. Right. And then really segment the customer list and all that kind of stuff and do client reach out. I mean, I think at this point, the client reach out, the individual client reach out and the personal relationship, right, is more important than the overall branding, messaging, blanket emails, blanket non-descriptive social media and things like that, because first of all, the customer feels special, right? Oh, you remembered I liked so-and-so. And then, they'll tell their friends. At this point, I think too, the word of mouth, right, is the most powerful driving force of new customers and new traffic into any store.
Okay, so that's good. Let's just expand on that for a second. What do I do? How do I get my current customer to talk about me with her friends? Do I incentivize her? I mean, what do I do to inspire her, motivate her to talk about me?
Well, you got to have what she's looking for.
Okay. So it's about inventory, or is it about something more than inventory?
I think it's about inventory. I think it's also about the way that you make her feel. If you know and understand who she is, what she likes, what size she is, even down to, almost the time of day usually that she comes in, you make sure that when you are doing the reach out and having the conversation with her, you're essentially making her feel so warm and fuzzy inside that why wouldn't she just pop in even though she's having the busiest day, of her week this week. Right. Right. Because I think we're so sales driven and not sale meaning discount. We're so sales driven. We have to sell. We have to hit these numbers. And we will naturally actually do that if we're genuine in our conversations with her.
And how do you want me to reach out and talk to her? What do you think is the most impactful way to reach out to her?
I mean, I'm a big, phone. Pick up the phone.
Pick up the phone and call her.
I'm a big, and listen, sometimes we don't have that information, right? we have a lot of people that we work with that are very fearful of asking for phone numbers, addresses, physical addresses, and all of those types of things. Those two things, the phone number and the physical address, are actually more powerful than the email, seeing that we all get hundreds of emails every single day. Even if it's a personal email, at some point they go down to the bottom of the list. So if you ask for the information and say, we sometimes, we send out lookbooks, or we want to call you when your favorite designer comes in. If they say, no, I don't want to provide you that information. Okay, great. But we don't know until we ask, right?
Right. But Margo, the reason they don't want to give it to you is because they don't trust you.
True, Dan. See? Mm-hmm. There you go on a Monday morning. Yeah.
I don't know if it matters what day it is. If you ask for my phone number and I don't trust you, you're not getting my phone number.
Absolutely not.
Right? I mean, how many of us have caveman123@hotmail.com address for all the crap from people we don't trust?
You mean I'm supposed to be doing that?
Right. So
people actually do that? Totally.
Yeah, people do that. Yeah. But so let's just talk about, I couldn't agree more. We have to be able to plan our next interaction with everyone. And we have to know what the outcome of every interaction is, or our desired outcome. And if our intention is pure and clear, and we're building an authentic relationship, I mean, that word sometimes is overused, but we're building an authentic relationship based on trust, they're going to give us that information freely.
Absolutely.
In fact, they're probably going to offer it to us before we ask for it.
Right. Hey, will you call me when, vendor Y comes in, or when you're having an event or what have you? Absolutely.
Right. And
it's building that relationship.
The relationship. Yes. I mean, I think if we go back a little bit in time and we look at all of this, when e-marketing, we'll call it e-marketing, newsletters and whatever, email marketing started, it was done, I can think about how many Macy's emails I got, or how many, Nordstrom emails I got, not to slam those stores, but that their intention was not pure. It was, get me on a list so that they can funnel information that's non-specific to me every day.
Yes, absolutely.
And we've completely turned off the customer because we're not specific. We're sending non-specific crap to them.
Right.
And I'm not saying stop emailing your customer. I'm saying be relevant. Know who your audience is. Don't send, Sally's email to Tracy. You're not going to get any success.
Right. And that goes back to how they will tell their friends and quote unquote refer their friends. Right. Because the relevance of whatever the messaging was specific, and they felt they had already created the relationship up front and then followed up. I think that's actually one thing that a lot of us, including myself, as a business owner, the follow up sometimes is hard, right? The day to day gets you, and that goes to, the follow up on, hey, Mr. Vendor, where is my merchandise that I ordered? It's late, right? All the way up to the customer where, okay, Sally gave me her email or gave me her phone number, right? She wants me to call her when this comes in, and I just simply got lost in the day-to-day and forgot.
Margo, can I ask you a question? What percentage of my day should be spent working on my business versus in my business? You keep talking about the day-to-day. I want to know how much time I should spend every day. Just give me a percentage that I should spend on my business.
Well, that's kind of a loaded question, Dan. I mean, I feel like I'm being quizzed.
I need some guidance from you. We're talking about getting lost in the day-to-day. And if I'm saying, if you're sitting in front of me, I'm a retailer, right? You're sitting in front of Twig and Berries apparel company right now. Tell me how much time I should spend working on the business versus how much time I should spend in the day-to-day, getting lost in the day-to-day.
100%.
100% of my day should be spent on the business.
Yes.
But I mean, let's
be clear. It's not. It is. That is not realistic. I mean, I would say, the way that I would actually look at it is take a step back, figure out, and you taught me something that was really profound. If you spent a week or 2 weeks or even 30 days every single day writing down what it is that you do and how much time it takes, right? And then, really saying, okay, what is it that I want to accomplish here? And then on the day, really almost schedule the time, right, to work on the business.
Right.
Because I think for some people, it could take a lot longer than others based on where they are.
I agree.
And so if they really understood what is it that I'm getting lost in, right, which could be the stuff that they absolutely love, right, but they're missing the whole on the business piece.
Right.
I think, we need to sort of figure that out so we can understand what their strengths and weaknesses are, and then also understand, what their support system or team or employees look like and what their strengths are so they can sort of come in and help. So what's always interesting too is that the owners, when you're, a small business owner, you almost think that this only applies to you, right?
Right.
The working on the business. And if we can't empower the people that we pay, right, to also do the same thing, it takes a little bit longer maybe.
Really well said. What a great point. If we can't empower the people that work for us to work on their business, how do we expect to be able to work on our business? I mean, that is probably the best coaching tip that we've had, in 10, 12, 15 podcasts. The best tip we have is to empower your people to work on their business. Each one of them has their own business. Each one of them has, my belief, each one of them has their own accountability. They have a portion of the business that they completely own. And if they're not working on it, they spend all their time in it. Do we really move forward?
Right.
Yeah.
Can we move the needle forward? And that, even translates into, what's going on now with even the remaining sale merchandise that's left in some of our client stores. It's like, okay, if we didn't empower our salespeople to feel comfortable to alert us that, this isn't going to sell at full price ever, right? Before the markdown cadence or the markdown process and timing, sort of buzzer was there, was about to come upon us, right? Like we simply, and it's hard too, I think that's actually probably, and I don't know if you find this to be true also, I feel as though that's probably one of the hardest things as a small business owner to do, is to actually empower your people, because, it's fear, it's almost fear-based. You know what I mean? It's like we're a little fearful of what the outcome could be, but really at the end of the day, we're just selling stuff.
Right.
We're just talking to people all day. We're just trying to create a place where not only, obviously we want to be successful and make money and, go on beach vacations or ski vacations. I'm just not one of those people. But really, if our employees don't feel comfortable with almost making their own decisions sometimes in what they feel is right on the front of the house, in the selling and even, feedback of merchandise to the owner, it's coming from us as the owner. It's not coming from them. It's not necessarily they're not doing their job. It's that we haven't empowered them to be able to do that.
Right. Right. And I think that there is a good percentage of information that an empowered employee, can deliver back to a buyer or an owner that is more fact-based than opinion-based, especially when we talk about goods on the floor. They're interacting with our client every single day. They're hearing objections. And if we can empower them, coach them to share that feedback, in a positive forum instead of a negative forum, we move forward.
Yeah.
And too often we suppress the employee instead of releasing them. I mean, we hire people to do a job and then we don't let them do it.
True. That could not be, that is right there the best comment of the podcast.
Okay, well, how do we...
It's like entrepreneurs, we as entrepreneurs we're control freaks.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we live in the past.
And we live in the past.
I spent a couple hours with a client yesterday, and I said, you got to stop digging up bones. This is unhealthy, Get away from the past. Start looking forward. Today's a new day. And I think that we are so weighted, by our history. We're so jaded by our history that we cripple ourselves,
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's interesting, too, in having done, all the year-end reviews this last month. And, clients are like, well, the plant, we're not growing as quickly, or the growth percentage plan for this year isn't as high as I would like it to be. And that conversation was really interesting because one of the powerful things about what we do, obviously, is in the merchandise planning is that, we have a 12-month rolling merchandise plan and sales forecast. And what people don't realize is we can't plan out 12 months anymore. Right? Because we don't know what fourth quarter is actually going to be like in January.
Right.
We really, we can't compare it to last year. We can't go back in time. We can't coulda, shoulda, woulda. And we really have to live in the now, right? While obviously having our sights set on the future, of course, but we really have to work on the business in shorter increments of time, right? Almost on the quarterly basis as opposed to the annual basis. It's always good to have a benchmark of what you want to accomplish in 12 months. But, because the world is so unpredictable sometimes, right? We just can't do that anymore.
And so, okay, I'm going to just throw a little bit of devil's advocate at you. I'm headed to market tomorrow to buy for holiday, not just holiday, but for fall, winter.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't know what fall, winter is going to bring, how can I possibly be buying for it right now?
Great question. I think for those fortunate retailers that feel, that they should be buying that far in advance, you need to really, really, really strategically look to see if that is the truth. Right? First and foremost. In some cases, it is. And so for those retailers, such as yourself, I feel as though, be conservative. So again, you might want to beat fourth quarter by 25% from last year, right? Because it was such a dreary, holiday season, fourth quarter for a lot of people, right?
Right.
And be conservative because in most cases, there's never not a time when you can actually buy more.
Buy more, exactly.
Right?
I think we have to repeat that. There never comes a time where we run out of inventory.
No, there's never a time. And so if we're working from the place of fear, right? Mm-hmm. Again, it trickles down in all aspects of the business. If we're working from the place of fear, we're never going to make the headway and the changes that we want to make. And if it's financial, if it's, hiring a district manager, whatever that is for you, right? It's going to be harder if we're actually, working from the place of fear.
Right.
So just be strategic, really ask yourself, is it really going to happen that way?
And so you're saying, don't forget the past, but don't live in the past. Don't live back there. You can't forget about it, but you also don't have to live back there. So, as I look forward, practice a little bit of restraint. Did I hear that right? You might have said conservative. I mean, practice some restraint. Buy more goods now. I mean, what does that do for our business if we're buying inventory now for now? I mean, isn't that what drives sales in our stores? Fresh goods?
Right, exactly. And it's funny because when you say it that way, and especially when you're basically we're going into a huge buying season for every single genre that we work with, whether it was gifts, like last month was the gift market and the men's market. This month is the women's market. And so it's one of those things where right now, if you're not positioned, right, this goes back to really what we first started talking about. The stores that are successful today don't have sale racks on their floor, right?
Right.
Because they liquidated it, and or in most cases, they just made the decision of I can't present this to my customer any longer, right? And I don't like the fact that there was more left over than what we had planned for, but I'm just going to say it is what it is, not coulda, shoulda, woulda,
right,
and move forward. So if we're going to market tomorrow and we're planning on buying 6 months from, 6 months out, but today our stores actually aren't presentable as of top of the season, freshest goods ever, right?
Right.
Then, whatever you do for 6 months from now, it's going to be a crapshoot almost.
Right. It is. And I mean, it is a bit of a crapshoot, and we're hoping to mitigate hope's not a strategy. We mitigate some of that risk in the future by practicing restraint and by really knowing who we're buying for in a concise format. I think, again, I refer to Scott Smith. Scott Smith from Empower Retail, he's out there preaching narrow and deep, narrow and deep, narrow and deep. Really not buy less, but buy more targeted and have what she needs right now. Do you believe in that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, I believe in that. I believe that if you don't prioritize your time at this next market, if you are coming from a place where you're understocked because you had a larger amount to liquidate and or that went to permanent markdowns, if you don't focus on that first before you even look at what, the buy for 6 months out from now,
right,
whatever you do and all the planning that you've done for the 6 months out from now, will potentially not necessarily be as, I don't want to say profound, but, be as successul necessarily because, be as impactful because I think if you don't, well, I know, numerically, scientifically, if for 3 months, right, you're chasing goods because, you didn't focus on today, right, and what the next 3 months look like, you lose some market share. So by the time you get to 6 months from now and those deliveries start rolling in, you bought them today using today's numbers, but that demand could change if you don't have the right balance and flow of your merchandise in the current season. And we forget about that, right? So it's like, you hear this all the time too. Traffic's down. Well, first and foremost, are you measuring it?
Right.
If you're not, I don't even want to have this conversation. But second of all, did you really look at who hasn't been shopping with you and then really being introspective and asking yourself why?
Why? Yeah.
If you didn't have what she wanted and she did actually come in, right? Then she's not going to come back after a certain amount of time.
Okay, I retract what I said earlier. That's the most impactful statement we've made in a lot of podcasts. If you don't know why she didn't come in, if you don't have the ability to examine why and really hold yourself accountable to the truth, you're probably not in a very good place.
Right.
We really need to dig in.
And if we do really need to dig in. And here's the thing. What a lot of us do is say, oh, well, we didn't have events, or we didn't send out as many emails, or the delivery for this vendor was terrible this season, or what have you. But really, that's surface level stuff, right?
Right.
That's real surfacey stuff. You know, the bigger stuff is really in the hard stuff that we have to pull out of, you know, the inventory management system, the POS, you know, system, and really even look at how the deliveries flowed in, you know, on the weekly basis. You know, if you just obviously depending on the retailer, but you know, you really got to get into the weeds for that kind of stuff.
Right, I get that. Yeah, 100%. Margo, every time we get on this together, I feel a little more inspired, and I really appreciate you coming on again today, and I cannot wait for our next conversation. Before we check out here, you know, tell us, how do we get on Margo's list? How do we find Margo?
Okay, you find us through our website, theprojectretail.com. You can always email us at info@theprojectretail.com. We are on Instagram, although not extremely actively social. Okay, no judgment. And yeah, so always love to be on and love talking with you, and really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, girl. Really appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. See you in Vegas.
Yeah. Thank you again for joining us today. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the Wealthy Retailer podcast on whatever your favorite platform is. There is a whole library of great retail talk, just like we had. Also, head over to thewealthyretailer.com and join our newsletter, and we'll inspire you with a bunch of great content. We really want to connect. Here's another great podcast you should check out. In fact, if you haven't already, subscribe above and check out all of our podcasts. Subscribe above or visit thewealthyretailer.com and join our newsletter.